This is Steve Bibby from the Lancashire Wrestling Federation, the LWF, and you are watching Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time. Your host, Stu Palmer.
Mind if I tag along? Could you just take some time on me? I don't want to cause alarm, but I can't remember how to feel. Would you take me back? Would you take me home? I need a human touch, it's not my own.
Welcome, it is episode 107 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast, and we've got a lady, we've got a female former wrestler on the show. It's been a long time since I've had a woman on the show, and it was about time, because we've had some fantastic ladies in the business, and it's none other than 80s wrestling star Mad Maxine. Mad Maxine was trained by the Fabulous Moolah. Obviously, there's been stories about Fabulous Moolah. We skirted around that a little bit. We didn't go too much into that as it has been shown in shows and episodes on wrestling programs. But yeah, trained by the Fabulous Moolah. She was in the WWE only for 2 matches. There was a contract given to her. You'll get to hear more about that and why she didn't sign the contract. But she went on to Florida and the territories, and she was great friends with the late, great Luna Vachon. So she's got some fantastic stories. She's also got a book out as well, entitled The Chronicles of Mad Maxine. You can get that on Amazon. You can get it from her personally. She does have a Facebook account as well. Janine Mosjeff is her name on there. I will have links for that. So yeah, please support Mad Maxine. She has a great story. She's done journalism as well. Just a great story. A lovely lady. And I'd like to thank Fabio Osht from Pro Wrestling Stories. He writes some great articles. He got me in touch with Mad Maxine. So yeah, without further ado, my guest for episode 107 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast is wrestling star of the 80s, female wrestler, women's wrestler, Mad Maxine. Enjoy. My guest all the way from Florida is wrestling star of the 80s, Mad Maxine. What an honour to have you on today on Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
Well, thank you, Stu, for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Now, I've been reading up on you because I wasn't aware of like the mid 80s into the late 80s as such. I was born in 86 myself. But yes, okay. you were in the WWF. So I'm going to go straight into that. How was your time in the WWF?
Well, I trained with Fabulous Moolah, and that was a pipeline to WWF at the time. So I only had 2 matches with WWF. And at the end of the second match, Gorilla Monsoon put a contract in front of me and said, sign it. And I was like, I need to have a lawyer look at this. My sister is an attorney, and, she had advised me that, don't sign anything. And had I signed it, basically I would have signed away all rights. And, it just, they really owned you, lock, stock, and barrel. I don't know how it is today. But back then, any merchandising, actually my name would have belonged to them. And, I was, the attorney I talked to said, this is ridiculous. Do not sign it. So, and by then I was pretty, dissatisfied with Moolah. She had, there were a lot of things that went on in, Columbia, South Carolina that were, underhanded and just plain, I would say, evil. I was, I had a job. I was a journalism major, just like you, and had worked as a journalist for a couple of years before going into wrestling as a journalism project. So I had a sense of my own kind of agency in the world, and I wasn't going to let somebody put me under their thumb, as she did many of the young women in the camp. And I'm talking about the trainees. I would not say that was true about the women who were working for her full time and living on the compound. But she'd get these naive young women, and who were anywhere from their late teens to, well, some of them, like one of them was 16 and had a permission from her guardians to be there. But, they were young and inexperienced and didn't realize that there is women on women crime, and that they shouldn't just kind of view her as mom and somebody to be trusted. She was not to be trusted. So
a lot came out, didn't it, in more recent times, and a dark side of the ring and stuff about it.
That's
So
right.
I mean, it was that's how the business was back then, wasn't it? You know,
I think so. I mean, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to compare notes with the women who are wrestling today. If you wanted it and really, really wanted it, you just agreed to whatever terms they set for you. So whether that was earning $50 a match with a huge house, or I'm sure there were a lot of kind of sexual favors that were exchanged in terms for, but I did not encounter that. Fortunately, after I left WWF, I went down to Florida with a couple of wrestling buddies, who Luna Vachon, and Peggy. Well, she wrestled under Peggy Lee Pringle when we were together, and we had a great run with in championship wrestling from Florida. And the booker was Wahoo McDaniel, Chief Wahoo McDaniel, and he was my wrestling partner, and he was an above board guy. I mean, he really ran a pretty tight ship. I mean, it was still a kind of a boys' locker room kind of thing, but I never saw anything, kind of untoward go on.
It's cool that you did it on your own terms and you still got to wrestle. I mean, the territories were still flourishing even then, weren't they? Before, WWF really did become the international juggernaut, that it became to be. So, it's nice to hear you did that. You went down to Florida.
Yep. And in fact, that was a return home because I had finished up university in Tampa. And so I was coming back home and had lots of friends and supporters. And it was just really fun to see people in the audience who I knew and be able to hang out with them. I was part of this artist and writers group in Tampa. And it was just, I felt I was in a very supportive environment, which is very different from, later in my very short wrestling career when I was on the road and, didn't really have a connection to anybody much. So, yeah, the Tampa years were definitely the best.
Your look at the time as well, I can see in the background there, I'm going to make reference to what's in shot. Yeah, your look was amazing. Ahead of the times, 100% ahead of the times. And how was it crafting your look? And the persona really on, how was that for you, having that creative side yourself?
Oh, that, I have to say costuming was my favorite part of the whole deal. I just loved coming up with the look. I was dating a guy who was really into comics, and he showed me the comic X-Men with the character Storm, who at the time was African-American, had this big mohawk. And she was kind of a biker look. And I thought, that's it. That's what I want. And so I went for it. I didn't consult Moolah. I just went out and, brought a bunch of champagne and my friends, and we spent the afternoon, and I got mohawked and came back, and Moolah was not happy with me. She was like, that is very unfeminine. People aren't going to like that. But then she thought about it, I guess, for a couple of days and realized that, this might be a good look for a heel. And so that's how she brought me out. By the way, I never really liked being a heel. It's just not some people, that's all they want to be. Luna, who I knew as Angèle, that's all she just wanted to be a heel. She wanted to follow in the footsteps of her aunt, Vivian. But, I just found it too difficult for people to actually, just actively hate me and throw drinks at me. I mean, that was like you were really doing your job if people were throwing their Cokes at you. And it's like, I'd rather be a baby face.
I'm surprised by that, because I know, other people's opinions within the business. They love heel. They say it's easier to be a heel. So yeah, I'm surprised you say that,
I don't know. If you were in the ring, what would you go for? Do you think?
I don't want to say I I'm influenced by like Paul Heyman, but I wouldn't want to. I'd want to be my own person. But I would say like the chicken shit manager, and it'd be heel. It'd have to be. Yeah, that'd be me. That'd be me, like running away and yeah. But like, if I had to say I was influenced by someone, I know a lot of people are. Paul Heyman, just that way, and I can run my mouth as well. I'm quite good at running my mouth, I think. But yeah,
you'd be a good manager with that mouth on you. Best one, Percy. He went by the end later.
Oh my days.
Nicest guy, I'm sure everybody says that, just, funny as hell, had this really rubbery face, would just like make these like looks. Yeah. You just like could hardly keep from laughing. It was just very, very, very easy guy to work with.
I was at the Hall of Fame when he was inducted. I was there in America.
Right.
It was amazing. They're my favorite nights, believe it or not. It wasn't going to WrestleMania. It was seeing all the guys I watched. So yeah, obviously his son's inducting him and stuff. That was an amazing night when obviously Percy went in, man. Unbelievable.
Did everybody sing his praises as I?
Oh yeah,
across the board.
Oh my God, it was just mad that he was a mortician by trade as well.
I know, right?
Amazing. Like Paul Bearer. I was frightened of him when he first came in. And he had obviously the face. They powdered him. I was frightened of the man, a bit like Luna when Luna was with Bam Bam. I was scared of Luna, but I appreciate Luna. As I got older, what she did for the business. Just going back to what you were saying about her.
Well, being a mortician, I mean, you're working with people. I mean, it really is something where you're taking people in their grief-stricken state and helping them through this. So, I mean, I think that personality, that kindness that really was part of his whole thing, that actually makes sense to me in a weird way.
It's just it's amazing. Yes, I'd like to ask you as well, you've written, you've got a novel which you've been writing for 30 years, so I have to ask about the novel as well, and how you put it together. You collated a lot of information over a long time frame there. So yeah, a bit more on your writing. I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. Well, towards the end of my time as a wrestler, I got ripped off horribly. It was in Houston, and usually I would have my locker room with the guys. I mean, I'd have like a little space off to the side. And this time I had my own locker room, but it wasn't under security. So I came back and everything, my journal, my camera, my costumes, everything had been stolen except for the payday in my boot, because Moolah had always told me to put my money in my boot. So at least I had that. And I'm getting derailed. What was the question again?
About putting together your book, and obviously the number of years.
So I had a journal that was stolen, and I kind of just went back and kind of built it. But then it's a strange thing, back then kayfabe was a really big deal, and you didn't let the marks know what was going on. You didn't talk around them. You didn't. If you were friends with somebody you were in a story with, and you were never seen together, that was verboten. And no matter if you were friends, I mean, it really was serious and pounded into you. I actually had a lot of resistance to kind of telling the truth about it, because I was really feeling like I was betraying the wrestling, business by doing it. But then I kind of eventually, after Moolah died, and then sadly, when Luna passed away, I just felt like then COVID came, and I was like, God, this thing could take me out. I might as well just go for it. And it was really just irresistible, and it did take me a really long time, even though much of it I had written much of it before then, but I just had this deep squeamishness about laying it all out. Even though, of course, that's far in the past. People worrying about, protecting the business. I mean, everybody knows at this point. It's just, there are no secrets anymore. So anyway, just a confluence of push and pulls, and finally got it written. Working on book number 2 right now. And,
brilliant.
it's a sequel, and it's the ongoing adventures of this group of lady wrestlers who have escaped Moolah's clutches and are now going on their own and figuring things out. And it's there's a lot more besides wrestling, including hallucinogenic mushroom trips, and I mean, it's more fictional, let's just say.
Right. Okay. Where can we get the first book? Where is it available?
It's available via Amazon. I also have a pile of books in my studio. You can find out the purchasing information through my Facebook page. Hard-hitting advice from Lady Maxine, and so just you just Google Mad Maxine and something's going to come up.
I'm going to ask about more current wrestling. Do you ever catch any of the modern product, or are you totally away from it these days?
I'm aware of it, but I do not follow it at this point. I that part of basically that door has closed. I mean, I played basketball on scholarship in college, and once I stopped doing that, I was no longer interested in basketball. It just makes me twitchy to do, to watch either basketball or wrestling. And so I just don't do it. But it's not that I don't think that, on the occasions when I have found it, watched a match, I am very impressed by the caliber of training and matches. It's not the, a lot of it is not the TNA, kind of just, pretty women out there doing things, but it's more serious wrestling, and that's what Moolah trained us to do. I mean, actually not Moolah, but her, the people who worked for Moolah. So I think it's come a long way, and I hope they're being paid, commensurately with their skills.
I've been like the likes of Charlotte Flair and that they're fantastic, and but women's wrestling was always there. It's just the profile of it. I feel for you guys in the time when you were doing it, because you guys are putting it all on the line just the same as them,
right? And I mean, I don't know if it's true now, but somebody described to me as like, that women were always thought of as like a gimmick, like midget wrestling or Jello wrestling or anything with like a gimmick. It wasn't really considered the real deal, and that's pretty insulting, considering, as you say, I'm in touch with the women of my era, and they're many of them are paying the price for, having, taken so many bumps and so many, falls, and it's really hard on your body. I mean, your body is, it just, just wears your body out. And not everybody, but, I felt kind of grateful to have gotten out. I mean, I did it. It was, I had the experience for a couple of years and got out before I got seriously injured. And I was like, whew.
Did you worry about the girls that were still in the business and in the situations they were in when you left?
I was, I didn't actually. I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about escaping, because my last, I had that experience in Houston where everything got stolen from me. And then the very last match that I had was at the Astrodome in New Orleans with Dark Journey. And I got hurt and humiliated. My top fell off, and in the middle, and it was like a massive crowd. And just the whole thing was just like, I was looking for a sign. It was like, okay, just show me a sign when I should leave. And it was like, got ripped off, got humiliated, got hurt, time to get out. And it coincided with my sister getting married up in DC. And so I went there, and I was just like, that was it. I wanted to have a full experience. I didn't want to just the whole point of doing it was not just put my toe in the water and then write about it, to take something. I wanted to, I wanted to be part of it. And I feel like I achieved that. But, I also admire and respect the women who have done it for 20 and 30 years. I mean, they're just some, veterans who have really, they really have put everything into it. And that's what they wanted to do with their lives. But I think some of them are really paying the price with their health right now.
I know she passed away 15 years ago now, but I always think about Sherry Martel, and they're reading about when she was saying she was away from her son. She was at the forefront, wasn't she, for WWF for so many years? But then, you get the person, you get to know the person, don't you, when they're saying, they regret in a way being on the road so much. But she had a family to feed, Maxine, in the same token.
Right. Same with Luna. I mean, she had a couple of sons, and that was one of the pains of her life, was to be away from them. I know that she talked to me and was very, very sad about that. And, but it seems like her kids have turned out all right. One's a chef. I don't know about the other one.
Her son that was on Dark Side of the Ring, he was, his accounts were amazing. He was so articulate, and, speaking about his mum, he really showed her in such a lovely light, It was, absolutely. Now, I haven't asked about you training before getting in the ring. So we're going back a bit now. Just like how was training? How was training for you when you first got in?
I think if you go into the ring, if you go into training when knowing some acrobatics or gymnastics, I think that you have a real advantage, because you're doing a lot of flips and a lot of kind of gymnastic moves, and I had never done any of that, and I'm 6'2", and my body just felt all of a sudden very gangly, and just like my feet seemed like 10 miles away, and I had a hard time just even achieving the first good bump, without hurting myself. I had these 9-inch bruises on my elbows. Each elbow, it was like this mass of jelly with like bone chips floating inside it. And then I somebody said, well, why don't you wear, pads? And I was like, and everybody was like, pads? Why would you wear pads? That's just so like not done. Except for, I think, Angel did. She wore knee pads because she had bad knees, but it was really freaking hard. And but I also had this determination. It was like, I put it out there. I told all my friends, I'm not going to just like turn tail and run when things get tough. I'm just going to, I just figured if I stuck with it, eventually things would fall into place, and it did. It did. I don't think, I'm will never be considered one of the greats in terms of my actual wrestling prowess, but I could do the moves, and like the flying head scissors. I love that move, but never did it in the ring. Just did it in training.
How was it performing at arenas, Maxine? How was it performing in front of a crowd? Because I'm just a fan. I've been to many shows, but I can only imagine like what was running through your mind at a show, and just the reaction, the crowd reaction. Because I love asking you guys that are in the business. That's amazing to me, how you felt, and what the crowd was like and stuff like that.
It took me a while. It took me, I don't know, 10, 20 matches for me to finally gonna have a degree of comfort while I'm in the ring, I was terrified. I mean, I was just hoping people wouldn't see my knees shaking and, my pulse just like racing. I really, the whole thing just was overwhelming. Crowds just like screaming at you. Yeah, really being, and that's what you want, right? I knew that was what the goal was when I was a heel. But just, it was overwhelming. And eventually, I remember when it happened, it was a match in Miami. And it was like, I stepped out there and I finally thought, okay, these people are on my side. Because at that point I was working with Wahoo. And I finally had the sense that, okay, they are backing me. They are on my side. They're not out to get me. And I just finally felt like some sense of ease. From then on, it just got easier. Plus, I was working with Peggy and Angèle, and they were, they knew what they were doing. Angèle was, we were about the same age. Maybe she was a little younger, but she had been around the business her whole life, and she had been in the ring a long time. So, even though she was, green in one way, she was a pro and a veteran in another way. And Peggy was a, complete pro.
Amazing. I've seen matches of Luna from ECW with Stevie Richards. Before the women were really wrestling the guys, she was a trailblazer, and she gets overlooked in my mind. She really, really does.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Vice did that piece on her, because I really think
yes,
she has. She was scary and like legit scary.
yeah.
And you wouldn't want to poke the bear. I mean, she would carry that on. I mean, she wasn't like she went behind the curtain and it all dropped away. I mean, I would have recommended people be very careful with her. Although in person, when she was just at home, I couldn't find a nicer person. She was just a very kind, loving, generous person.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, are you familiar with Adrian Street?
Of course I am, because he's from South Wales. Obviously, I'm up in the north, so yeah, he's from like the mining area, because that's obviously where his dad worked. Very, very tough upbringing. They'd leave us standing. Now the people of those times, people have gotten soft. It's got to be said. That's how I feel. But yeah, there again, I'll use the word trailblazer, and he happens to be Welsh. And I've watched the documentaries on him. A very, very hard man. Still a hard man by all accounts, from people I know that know him within the business.
Yeah, so I wrestled him when he was, and he had the valet, Miss Linda, and
yes,
and he didn't pull any punches.
Nope.
I definitely felt that match, and and a great showman. And I have to say, Miss Linda helped me with costuming ideas. She also had she had some great ideas, and really was quite generous. Of course, we had to do that on the QT, because nobody could ever see us together. But it was quite an eye opener to be working with them. Really enjoyed that. Paved
the way for the androgynous characters that we've had. After the way he was, the way
I just can't even imagine how hard that must have been.
Amazing. I'm glad you brought Adrian Street up. That's it. Yeah, it's nice. That's nice to bring him up.
There are a number of Welsh wrestlers, aren't there? I mean, it seems like there have been a number of people from your homeland.
Yeah, or God rest his soul, Orig Williams, the promoter here. He was very, he promoted all over the UK. He was very, he was prevalent with the guys he brought through. We've had a few. We've had a few, to be fair, over the years. So yes, right. Can you just plug where we can find the book And obviously, there's another book coming. The second book's coming. So yeah,
Cool.
just for the listeners and the viewers before you go.
Yep, absolutely. It's called The Chronicles of Mad Maxine, and it's available on Amazon. If you listen to books, I did a recording of. I read the book, and so it's available on Audible as well.
Brilliant.
And if you prefer to buy it from me, get an autographed copy. That would be, within the U.S. because it's quite expensive to send things. It's expensive to send things over to your part of the world. I just find me on Facebook and send me a message and I'll give you the info. It's just look for Mad Maxine on Facebook.
My guest, female wrestling star of the 1980s, former WWF WWE talent, Florida territory talent too. It was nice to hear about the territories as well. It is Mad Maxine. Thank you so much for coming on Stu's Wrestling Podcast today.
Thanks, Stu. It's really nice to meet you. I appreciate the time.
And yourself. Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care.
What a fantastic episode with former 80s female wrestler Mad Maxine. What a story. You can get a book, The Chronicles of Mad Maxine. It is available on Amazon. Also search on Google for it as well if you use other places for books. Yeah, just a fantastic story. What about the stories about Luna? Obviously she trained with Luna and it was just a lovely, lovely episode. Great to have a lady back on the show. We need to get more ladies on the podcast. As always, a big thank you to Chris Dutton for editing the show. I appreciate you, buddy. As you know, thank you again. I'm on 107 now, Chris. Mad, isn't it? And thank you to Mike Angus, as always, for the episode intro. And a big thank you to Evade Escape for Get Up and Move. And we'll see you very, very soon for episode 108 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast.